What if one of history's greatest minds left behind a final, totally unfinished masterpiece? In this explainer, we are diving deep into a theory that claims to do the impossible, complete the work of Nikola Tesla and his mysterious dynamic theory of gravity. So get this, one of Tesla's boldest and honestly most mysterious claims was that he had this dynamic theory of gravity that was going to completely redefine physics. He was openly disagreeing with Einstein. He promised to publish the full theory, but he died before he could. And just like that, it left this massive question mark hanging over the history of science. But what if the key wasn't lost at all? What if it's been hidden in plain sight this whole time, right inside the world's most famous equation? The theory we're digging into today suggests the answer lies in a simple but, wow, a really profound shift in perspective. Okay, so this slide gets right to the heart of it. We all know Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, right? Mass is a form of stored energy. But what happens if you just flip it? This theory proposes that mc squared equals E changes the whole story. It suggests that mass, or m, when you multiply it by its relationship to everything else in the universe, that's the c squared part, that's what actually generates the energy field E. So in this view, energy isn't something mass is, it's something mass does. It's a result of its connection to everything. And look, this isn't just some clever algebra trick. It's a completely different way of looking at the entire cosmos. If you start thinking of mass not just as stuff, but as condensed information, then this equation is telling us that information, interacting with everything else, is what generates the energy fields that make up our reality. It basically reframes our whole universe as a product of relationships, not just a collection of lonely things. Let's see how this idea builds out from here. All right, so if energy is created by these relationships within a giant universal field, what does that mean for the structure of that field? For the very dimensions of reality itself? Well, this new perspective on energy needs a whole new perspective on dimensions, and the theory calls it local dimensional invariance. So what in the world is local dimensional invariance, or LDI? Well, to put it simply, it's this idea that higher dimensions aren't hiding somewhere, curled up in some tiny, inaccessible space. Nope. Instead, they are constantly manifesting right here, with us, folding themselves into our observable 3D reality. And let me tell you, this is a radical break from a theory you've probably heard of, string theory. And this slide just perfectly illustrates that core difference. The traditional view, coming from string theory, says those extra dimensions are compactified. Basically, they're curled up so tightly we can't get to them. We can only hope to maybe detect them indirectly. But the LDI view, it says they're projected. They're not hidden away. They are the literal source of our local reality, the one we experience directly as 3D space. So the big question is, are dimensions these hidden containers, or are they the projector creating the movie we're all watching? Okay, so if our reality is a projection from these higher dimensions, how does that even work? How does that projection actually happen? Well, the theory uses this really powerful metaphor to explain the whole process. A fundamental cycle of sound, light, and matter. Let's break this down. Step 1 is sound. Now, we're not talking about literal sound waves here. It's a metaphor for a perfectly symmetrical vibration in that higher dimensional field. Think of it as pure potential. Then, step 2, light. Some kind of observation happens, and it breaks that perfect symmetry, collapsing the sound into raw information, which the theory calls light. And finally, step 3 is matter. This light, this information, it then condenses and cools into the stable, asymmetrical forms we all know and love. This whole cycle is how the universe apparently moves from this state of perfect unity to the complex, messy world we actually experience. And as the source material puts it, this isn't just theory, it is the phase transition of reality. Whoa, so this cycle isn't just a nice story to help us understand. It's being presented as the fundamental mechanic of existence itself. But if this is the mechanic, what's the blueprint? What's guiding it? So what is the blueprint? What's the master plan that guides this whole projection of reality? The theory says we can find it in these incredibly complex, honestly beautiful geometric shapes called Calabi-Yau manifolds. Now, you might have heard of these from string theory, but here they play a completely different role. Yeah, so in the old model, the one from string theory, these manifolds are basically seen as passive containers. They just hold the curled up dimensions, that's it. But in this LDI model, they are active blueprints. They don't just contain the information, they project it. Their entire intricate geometric structure is basically the source code for our reality. So the key takeaway here really is that shift from a passive box to an active projector.
And how does it project this structure? Well, the answer is fractal geometry. The manifold structure has these self-similar patterns that just repeat at every single scale. And this repeating pattern, this is the relation, the c-squared we were talking about earlier in the mc² equation. It's the fundamental rule that connects the massive to the microscopic. It's the reason we see the same kinds of patterns in the cosmic web of galaxies and in the structure of a single atom. It's like the universe's blueprint is just showing through at every possible zoom level.
Okay, so now we get to the real payoff. This is where the theory attempts to finally complete the work Nikola Tesla started all those years ago.
So, if all of reality, everything from tiny atoms to massive galaxies, is just a projection from a single unified blueprint, what does that mean for the fundamental forces of nature? What about these forces we experience as totally separate things, like, say, gravity and electromagnetism?
And here it is, the grand unification. This theory proposes a single unified field. Forces like gravity, electromagnetism, and the nuclear forces, they're not actually separate. They're just different expressions of this one single higher dimensional field. So gravity, in this new picture, isn't the curvature of space-time like Einstein said. It's a local manifestation of this unified field's properties. And this is what completes the core idea of Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity. He always proposed that gravity was fundamentally an electromagnetic phenomenon. Basically, the forces we see are just different shadows being cast by the same higher dimensional object.
So if there's anything to this theory, it means our universe isn't just a collection of static objects, it's more like a dynamic performance, a continuous act of creation. And if reality truly is a projection from some higher dimensional sound, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What song are we playing? Thanks for joining this explainer.